Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Democracy, Brian.
I'm happy to be here. Hey.
I mean, but you do realize that the name of this thing is unfortunate, right?
Yeah, I do. I do. But, we're here and we're going to continue to fight the good fight and do the good work that we're doing, right? I was just having a conversation yesterday. I was guest lecturing a course with some students in a political science course. We were having a conversation about, how to be engaged, how to be civically engaged, not just inside of the courthouse or being inside the legislative body. Like, how are we engaged in our processes? Um, and I was just like, the fight for democracy doesn't just end in the normal systems, right? In the traditional systems. They continue online in community organizing and in these ways that we've been able to galvanize people to fight for democracy. And yeah, so happy to be here, happy to have this conversation because I think it's super important.
Yeah, when I first saw how eloquent you are about, Biden, in spite of the negative criticism he's getting now, but a few months before the war, I first, saw your content and I just thought it was miraculous how succinct and and I thought I'm a good communicator, and I was like, damn, I'm taking his class. Anyway, but we can't. If only now we could kind of clone you and send you out into the field, because so much of what's not gonna be easy to deal with over the next several months is these down ballot areas where we have no control in so many ways, unless we have people like you speaking, which would galvanize people.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and you know what's funny about that? I was literally talking about that yesterday, how I think there needs to be a change in our society, where like these conversations or these avenues, or modalities of being able to disseminate information are more ample, right? Like we see this happening on Instagram where they're trying to limit political conversations or limit political discourse on the app, right? So everybody's default is turned off so that are limited to seeing only political content from people that you follow.
Mm,
And my argument is we need to create a societal norm here in the United States where talking about politics is the new normal, right? Like we have a lot of content creators that are doing this work, but during the 2020 elect or 2022 election cycle for state governorship here in Georgia, when Stacey Abrams was going against Brian Kemp, when I was doing content for her, the biggest thing that I was getting in my comments every single time like a video went viral about her was like, we need a Stacey Abrams in my state. We need a Stacey Abrams. Can we get her here? Can we clone her here? Like, and I think if we create, spaces where online, social media, however you want to put it, these conversations are like the normal, and we see this, I think we can create representation for people in different states to get excited about it. Like, oh, I'm seeing Brian create content, let me do it. And I live in Alabama, or I live in Wisconsin, or I live
right,
in or I live in wherever it is. Because I remember coming up when I was doing content and then looking up to Kenny at Too Raw Too Real,
oh,
right?
he's so great.
And seeing his content and seeing Zach's content as activists, right? And seeing how they do it. And then I got into the fight and I present information a little bit differently than they do, but it's the same end goal, right? And I think my audience is different than their audience, but that's great because we're getting the same message to various segments of the population.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that we can, when you say clone me and put in different things, I think creating space for me to be a representation of this can be done. This
Mm.
can be mainstream. This can be something that is not boring to talk about. And then here I am, and the person is just excited to do this work in Alabama, and they start
Right.
talking about the Maryland lands of of Alabama, like that. These are stories that can actually happen. So yeah, I think we need to create a new normal in society
Well,
regarding.
I've meandered into Substack, which is a very interesting community, and it's like they're equally engaged. It's more writers as opposed to just speakers. Like this will be on our audio will be posted there, but it's an interesting community that I feel has tentacles to get into saying what you're saying by people like you that would then, write for it, get your, because we can't rely just on this traditional TikTok, Instagram anymore, because they're getting hip to the fact that we're also friggin' awesome, and we can change the world, which we did in 2020. I don't know, when did you get on board?
2021.
Okay, well, we stopped that thing from getting reelected, and I don't care that and very few politicians embrace TikTok, really, and that's their loss. And now that it's kind of meandering in this algorithm shithole, that it's hard to get that same kind of eyeballs as to what you're saying that's important. That's why this thing for me, my objective is to get rid of Jim Jordan. Like, ooh. I could feel it,
Yeah.
and it won't happen only on TikTok, because what he's guilty of is turning a blind eye to sexual, attacks during his time at OSU, and that's just going to get, flagged and not go up.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of like what you say is so amazing. There's other places. How do you have to say that? Even if it's doing local, the pushback to local newspapers is a thing that I think should be, that talk about community, that's where community starts. I don't know. But I
Yeah.
hope you join me in this "Let's Get Rid of Jim Jordan" campaign. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, I'm very team. Let's get rid of all of them. Let's get rid of Republicans that have consistently demonstrated that they're ineffective in governing, that they have no desire to govern, that their only strategy is to run on fear mongering, on xenophobia, on racism, on all of the isms, right? Like the and the fact that they're getting emboldened by a cult leader, like and none of that is conspiracy theory. Like this is the reality of it. Like people can't really give you real reasons as to why they would support this current day Republican Party. And I think what we're also seeing at the same time is the Republican Party really imploding on itself. And I really do see that this is a start of a potential third party that will be created. I firmly believe this. Like the fact that the old Republican Guard, the party of John McCain, the party of like Ronald Reagan, the party of Mitt Romney, like those old school conservative Republicans that I consider the old guard that have the long money, I think will never forgive Donald Trump for what he has done to their party.
Yeah.
And I really do think that they're going to split off and create a whole new thing because
Yes.
MAGA has a life of its own.
And after 2020, when those never actually after 2017, when the never Trumpers didn't make the independent party, the thing,
Right.
was the most ridiculous thing. Instead, they became complainers and
Yeah.
and bloviators, and they just look for work. And it's really, I agree that there's going to be. I mean, I actually wish we had more than just three parties. You know what I mean? Because there's so many diversities of opinion and what's at stake for everyone and every different. We all have different issues, but the worst part of the Republican Party is that they actually are not gonna implode. They have imploded. I think we should disrespect them by just never even calling them Republicans anymore, just calling them MAGA. And just that's the label. You wanted it, you got it.
Yeah.
Don't even use that word anymore. Because it's a criminal enterprise. And for them to be rallying behind a criminal boss, I mean, it's like bad version of The Godfather.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there was reporting, I don't know if you saw Tristan Snell on Twitter. I think usually he's very reputable. He tweeted out, he said that there was reporting or inside reporting that they wanted to change the RNC to the TNC, the Trump National Committee, right? And so there's that. You have
Was
them
that
want
after the airport would get named Trump Airport?
right. That was during that time too, right? So they wanted to rename Dulles Airport Trump Airport. So it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And this person who's just an egotistical man who's using his platform to stoke all these divisions and these divides is literally I'm convinced he doesn't want to really be president. I think that there's more money in grifting by being a martyr, particularly with his cult following, as there is to being president. I don't think he really wants that job. But the problem is that if he is popular enough to get elected, that he's going to put in all of these people who are, Project 2025, Heritage Foundation, conservative, Steve Bannon, neo-Nazi, white supremacists.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know what? It's not going to happen. I mean, I vacillate every other day. He's going to win. He's not going to win. I mean, I know in my heart I can't live in a country that becomes fascist again, because him winning only means that it's the Christian nationalist one. And when he finally decides who's going to be his running mate, that's going to be really telling, because I think it's going to be vetted by the Heritage Foundation, because ultimately they want to get him back into the White House, pull Sirhan out of there, and get him out, and have whoever that vice president is usher in their whole objective.
Yeah.
That is my fear. And that is why it can't happen. And as much as Biden has all the negatives that everyone's like, you can hear about it all day long, but I think it's going to come down to, are you voting for your own rights or not? It's as personal as that. It's as, what is your leading issue that really is why you even like living in America?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and you know, I think, and this is my prediction. I'm not saying, that this is I'm 100% right, but I think that Maryland lands winning and flipping that seat in Alabama in the state legislature, and how that was a territory that Trump won by 30 points, and she flipped it, a Democrat that made IVF and abortion reproductive rights central to her campaign in a ruby red state like Alabama. I think that is a harbinger for the Republicans. I mean, every single time that reproductive health has been on the ballot since the overturning of Roe v. Wade across the country, it's been 9-0, right? And I would consider this the 10th-0, right? Because this is something that I think we can see nationwide. I think them putting this on the ballot during the 2024 election for Florida,
That was great. Yeah.
it's going to be great. I mean, there are some people who are speculating that they're going to see a lot of split tickets, that they vote for abortion to be in the Constitution, abortion rights to be in the Constitution, but then also still vote for Trump. But I think that if we're doing the right thing, which we are, and doing the messaging and putting it in front of people, that Donald Trump has not only celebrated overturning Roe v. Wade and taking the credit for it, he's also saying that he would pass a national abortion ban, that they're coming after IVF. You had the one guy, I just posted that yesterday, who was the big advocate for Project 2025 and for Trump, saying that everybody who participates in surrogacy needs to be jailed for life. I mean, first it was abortion, then it was contraceptives. Now they're coming after surrogacy and saying you have to have it the natural way, because if you don't have the natural way, it's evil. It's gravely evil. Like, this is what these people are saying.
No, no,
And
I'm with you. I think the women's rights issue is tantamount to anything else.
yeah,
It's more important than saying I'm voting for democracy, especially if you're a woman. See, I'm gay, and I don't know if that affects me, or, and you know what I mean? But having been raised by women and knowing so many of my friends who have had abortions and knew the moments that that was a challenge for them. And the thing is that the Christians look at it as like, oh, it's like going, I'm just going to go do laundry. And they feel like there's no emotionality that goes with that. Every situation is something that shouldn't have to be like the kind of sentence that they want to make in certain states a death sentence,
Mm,
which is like, oh, what are we even talking about? What
right,
country are we living
right. Yeah, I mean, people can say whatever they want. This is going to come down to how you feel in that ballot box. The day of the election, when people, or when you're voting early, or whatever it is, when you're filling out that ballot, you're going into that ballot box, and you're thinking about what's this country's going to become, or how it's going to continue being based on how it was for the last 4 years. Where are your rights going to be if this administration comes in? What are the policy agendas? Like, if you feel that your rights are going to be taken away, I feel like that's going to be the decision maker in that ballot box. So we're going to see. And the polls. The other thing is these polls. I don't look at the polls. People who, and by the way, because I've said this on the show that we do on YouTube, called the Weekly Reader, Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. I said, we can't look at the polls when we're up and celebrate them, and then also look at the polls when we're down and discredit them.
in? Right.
I don't look at the polls either way, whether we're up, whether we're down. At the end of the day,
100%. Poll
it's
watchers, I mean, bird watchers are more interesting than poll watchers.
yes, yes. Like, at the end of the day, polls don't vote, people
It's
do.
an industry that's spun out of the political class to make more money from the corporations that want certain people. It's all part, it's as corrupt as the military complex. It's
Mm.
just the ugliness that has been revealed over these past few years through Trump, which to many is an eye-opening opportunity to know, like, so many more. It's an opportunity to not only know more, but see more people get engaged into the, into the their own community, into their communities in a way that I don't think would have happened if Trump had not gotten in. I'm one to find where the teaching moment is. How do we get through this? That's been always my life drive, because I've had so much shit to get through that has always been like, how I manage to deal with life a day at a time, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But I've, and the same thing with TikTok. What an amazing thing that happened through COVID. Like, I have, almost 300,000 followers. I mean, I'm a bit of a loner, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
here is this great opportunity to connect with people, and it's we the people again. And it was a beautiful thing. And it's unfortunate that it's tarnished now. But I am committed to this idea that, which was the original internet, was this way. You know what I mean? Before it became ad agencies kind of realizing, uh-oh, no one's putting ads in magazines, I'm getting to the internet. It's always, corporate America always shits everything up, you
Mm.
know, which is
Mhm.
why Substack, there's no advertising yet. So it's an opportunity. They needs to kind of lift some of the direct communications between people up, but yeah, I think one of my campaigns I'm going with is that if you become a one issue voter, and then that whole thing, if you get in the ballot box and you really think about what's that one issue I'm voting on, forget it. I know there's war and the environment and women's rights and gay rights. There's, and Democrats want 80 things. We want childcare and healthcare and like, because we're the good guys, but we're not the good guys because we can't communicate as a party effectively in unity to get what we actually need done. So, we're split in so many different houses right now within the Democratic Party.
Mhm.
But I think I agree with you. You're going to get in there and you're going to say, am I really going to vote for someone that's going to, if you have kids, do you want to look at your kids and think your kid's going to grow up to be a bully to sound like the president and go get, parents who have bully kids is a huge drama within the school systems.
Mm.
You know what I mean? That's like, who wants to have that kind of hassle.
Right. Yeah. I just, the one thing for me, and I was watching the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. He was interviewing Fareed Zakaria, who has a show on as a CNN, I
Yeah.
believe.
Uh-huh.
And so he wrote a book, and the entire premise of his book is that the entire electorate has changed, right? And so Stephen was asking him like, well, how do you see the predictions happening, like, nowadays? I think that it's changing, right? And so Fareed talks about the fact that back in the day, and historically speaking, you could tell who the president was going to be, or who was going to be reelected or elected, depending on how the economy was doing. That the economy was a significant factor, right? But he said that because the electorate has changed, because the segments of the population who are voting are more diverse, and we have, like, women are voting in larger numbers, and you have immigrant populations that are now, different, making up the electorate. He said that now the economy isn't the number one, right? And how we determine who's going to be president could probably be predicted based on other factors like social, the contextual society and right, and how we're doing with certain rights. And I think it's really telling that we're in a place right now where, we talk about Roe v. Wade being overturned, but we don't talk about enough how you have Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court talking about potentially contraceptives will be next, or gay marriage is next, or these radical politicians that are saying that they want to do national abortion bans, independent of the fact that for years they've been saying that this is something that should go back to the states. And when it did, now they're trying to change up their message, right? And I also think it's wild to me to see them double down on these culture wars that they're losing so heavily on, right? Like, they consistently try to give red meat to their base, but then you have people like Steve Bannon who are saying that they don't need suburban women, which is a lie. They absolutely do need white suburban women. He's over here on his show calling them, we don't need those educated Karens in the suburbs. And these are people who will literally be senior advisors and consultants to Donald Trump, who were his consultants back, and so the fact.
But I say, yeah, go ahead, say that. Because any woman in the suburbs that's going to hear her being referred to as that is like
Yes,
not.
yes,
I say they're going to end up spinning themselves into the toilet. That whole crew. This whole MAGA
yeah,
situation it's going to piss off young parents, and not just moms, young dads. You
yes,
want your daughter to, God forbid, go to school. Forget about worrying about her getting shot. How about she's going to have to worry about some kind of getting raped on the way home from school? And then what? Your 12-year-old has to have a baby?
right,
That's your daughter. Like, I
yeah,
don't have kids, but I know my sisters and how they are with their kids.
yeah,
They
yeah,
couldn't fathom,
yes,
you
yes,
know?
yes. They're gonna
So
be in a place where they think about how their daughters and granddaughters are gonna have less rights than they did coming up, or being, and they cannot second that motion. So yeah, I think they're pissing off women. I think they're pissing off white women. I think they're pissing off
black
uh
women, they're pissing off
black
gay
women,
people.
gay people, everybody, and then
It's,
calling
I
immigrants
say do
animals.
it, honey. Try it.
Yes, calling immigrants animals, and all of these things. I'm convinced you don't want to be president. You just want to grift.
Yeah, he wants to grift. Yeah, I'm sure. And plus, he's got this cockadoodle deal with Saudi Arabia with the golf courses, and now they're building some kind of big hen house over there in Saudi Arabia. So it's kind of like, okay, in any event, I I I hope that we get to in November 6th have this conversation and be like, see, we were right. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Watching I just remember Wolf Blitzer announcing in 2020 that Joe Biden won, and how I think it was just a relief for the entire country, you
Yeah.
know, like, oh, it's
Yeah.
good. And how, how stark of a difference there was. And so I don't know. I cannot see a world where he wins again.
I
Um,
don't, it's hard to imagine.
it's hard. The economy is doing great, like depending of what people are feel like.
The war will be over in the Middle East unless we're in World War III, which I can't imagine.
Yeah, and let me say this about that. Like the democracy worked in the way that it needed to work. You had over 100,000 people in Michigan that said don't like the current state of affairs, right? For whatever reason, whether they didn't know what was going on fully, right? Because like the administration had been working behind the scenes to try to ensure that Israel was doing right by not by being more precise and being and that language just demonstrated that there was already tensions between Biden and Netanyahu behind the scenes, and that Biden was just trying to let him know, like, motherfucker, get your shit together. Right. I don't know if I can curse on here. I'm sorry. But
You
like,
can, and he is a motherfucker, and he
yes,
needs to get out of that. He needs to
yes,
go.
yes. And it was demonstrative of that. And I think that people, when he talked about in the State of the Union creating a port in the coast of Gaza to make sure that humanitarian aid was flowing, like the fact that we had things already in the works, right? We were trying to be a good ally to Israel, who we have historically been backing because of the fact that they're a democracy in that part of the world, and they give us a lot of intel for our own national security and about
Right.
that region of the world, which is super important. I get all that. So as a geopolitical ally, we were doing our part, and that's been historical. But that doesn't mean that Biden was not having tensions already. When you have 100,000 people in Michigan say we're going to vote uncommitted and actually dedicate themselves to doing that because they wanted the administration to change course, and the administration listens, right, and says, here we go, and the messaging changed, right? That's how democracy is supposed to work. Let your voice be heard and do what you need to do so that the administration listens. Now, the administration listened. They abstained from that vote at the UN. They got it to be a ceasefire, and then you had Antony Blinken saying, we're calling for an immediate ceasefire, right? So, I'm gonna be honest and just say, when it comes down to Benjamin Netanyahu, fuck him. And the reason why I say that is because I am not willing to throw away my domestic policy in here in the United States because people are angry with how our government is
Right. Right.
dealing with that and brokering that over there when we've known that Benjamin Netanyahu is a far right and a whole bunch
Nightmare.
of other far right nightmare and has a whole bunch of other far right nightmares
Nightmare.
that want the destruction of the Palestinian people. Like
It's a nightmare, and it's got to end. And I think until these next few weeks that subsides in whatever way it does, because to me, the sooner that shit ends and the sooner he gets the fuck out of presidency over there, we can resume engaging these undecideds to get back to what's important to them, which is not having Trump come in and not let their families ever come and visit them.
yes,
Hello?
yes, yes, yes. So
And
yes,
I'm sorry, the case for Palestine is just, I can't understand. At least just say gays for not violence or gays for not, you know what I mean? But honey, they're gonna throw you off a roof, Miss Thing. You know what I mean? I can't. It's like, okay, anyway, but I think what I so appreciate about you and what I really want to engage with you on is how eloquent you are in speaking to the best of our democratic moment that we're in spite of everyone trying to attack it down. And I think your voice is critical, and that's why I think you should consider Substack.
I appreciate that. I'll look
I'm
into it.
sure you write. You're smart as a whip. Do you write?
Yeah, it's just what it is. I'm starting my doctoral program in the
So,
summer.
duh, of course you're smart as a whip.
Doctoral program, and it's just
Congratulations.
thank you. It's
See,
just
I'm a
if it's
dropout. I'm like what do they call a lackey dropout?
for me, it's really like I've always said if I didn't have to get the degree in order to do what I wanted to do, I would definitely, because I don't care about being called doctor or anything. Like that's not my end goal. My end goal, and just to further that point, like I didn't even walk for either of my graduations, and I have a master's, right? And for me, it's more so, okay, now that you have the little paper, the document, the degree, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to effectuate change and create impact? And I think that getting these degrees, these credentials allows you to step into spaces where you're able to be listened to when there's systemic change on the table. And I always say it's
Totally.
better to be at the table than to be on the menu. Um, right? Like that's the reality,
The issue that we're dealing with is
right? And that's what I'm saying. And
that's brilliant.
it's just the reality.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that say that they're not political, that's exactly what I say to them. I'm not political. It's just too boring, too much going on. Or I'm like, you may not be into politics, but it's into you.
Oh yeah, big time.
And that's the end. And so I don't understand how you could not show your voice to be heard, and when you're literally going to be impacted, your day to day is impacted.
Another thing I really feel like from a kind of spiritual approach to why voting matters is that if you love yourself, you're going to vote. It's so much about self-love. It's so much about going on the journey to love yourself from whatever depths you've come from. And I say that from having come from. And that journey of loving yourself, like the one thing you're not going to miss is voting,
Yeah.
because that's everything that you know in this country that is special, that separates you from animals. It separates you from a lot of other country members who live elsewhere. And yeah, I think it's about self-love, which brings back that one issue vote. Like, do you love yourself enough to vote for the thing that's either going to be, even maybe if it's not for you, but if it's someone you love, or a sibling, someone, but it's love at the end of the day. And that's why we all were so relieved in 2020, because we saw that we loved this country enough to not let that happen again. And that's why I can't imagine we don't love each other any less. The thing is, the anger in the streets at the moment, because of this international hiccup on earth, you know what I mean, is hopefully it's going to settle down enough time to have everybody remember, I love the America I've been living in these years. Okay, yeah, we have problems. We always have problems. And everyone thinks that this is the worst of ever. Having been a kid growing up in the 60s and 70s, that was drama. This is like Mary Had a Little Lamb stuff, you know what I mean? Well, the Vietnam War, in the thick of it, we were being thrown. I was a kid at that time, but cousins and brothers and my sister's boyfriends were getting drafted. I mean, talk about tension. Like
Yeah.
watching the news at 10 o'clock at night, you were probably not even. But how old are you, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm 28.
Anyway.
1996, and it's funny because depending on what you read, it'll tell you that I'm either the youngest millennial or the oldest Gen Z. It depends what you read, but
And I am what's called Generation Jones, which is not quite boomer and not quite whatever comes after that. But it's this pocket between 1954 and 1963, which is like Madonna and Obama. So I kind of like, yeah, okay, baby. I'm hanging with those people any day of the week. Anyway, yeah. So I forgot what I was saying before, but I definitely think the country now is so much better off than it was when there was race relations in the streets. It was unbelievable, and the war was going on, and Nixon was the biggest crook. So we're like, yeah, and we didn't have social media, and we didn't have cell phones, and it was like the only way you could communicate was within your community and in the street. And it was an interesting time. It's when I started my whole activism was like in grade school because of the war in Vietnam. It's grade school. So Yeah. So anything else that's on your agenda that you wanna, any in Georgia, are there any races that are currently on your radar?
Um, Not that really come to. I know that our Georgia state elections are coming up April 29th to May 21st. And that's the other thing. Like people don't know, people don't talk about that, right? Like people don't talk about those local elections that are happening at that point. But I'm trying to galvanize folks to go out to make sure they go out to vote. I by virtue of my day job, I'm over here trying to manage an entire polling site that we're propping up here
Oh, great.
in the state in DeKalb
In the
County.
area.
Yeah, in the area, very general,
General vicinity of the world. You're in the world. Okay, we know
right?
that.
In Decatur, DeKalb County. And yeah, we're propping that up, but that's kind of the work, right? Making sure that we have more locations accessible to people in the community to go out to vote. Because if there's only limited locations, then people don't know. But
So
getting that.
what were you doing with Stacy? You were working for the campaign?
Yeah.
Great.
That's how all that got started. When I started my content creating, I started on Twitter Spaces in 2021, middle of the pandemic. Started very communal or oriented, right? Like, hey, how are you doing? Right? What's your day like? Who are you? Just strangers meeting online on the internet, and that group turned into from 5 people turned into 10 people, turned into 12 people, turned into 25, and so on and so forth. And it was just a very communal based approach where people would come in and we would talk about mental health. We talk about LGBTQIA issues. We would talk about, um, organized religion versus spirituality, like things that I felt like
Great.
needed to be talked about. Because when you look on media, when you look on reality TV, there's always this drama that's surrounding Black, Latino, LGBTQ, low socioeconomic status people, and I'm like, these identities are salient identities to me, and so I'm like, let me create a space that could encapsulate folks to talk about substantive issues. And so anyway, from there, being a debate nerd, because I was a debater growing up, I remember watching the debate that happened in 2018, because I saw, Stacey Abrams was about to do her rematch with Brian Kemp. And in
Right.
2018, she did a debate with him, and for 1 minute in that debate, she just lays into him. And I screamed, I was like, this has to be screen recorded and put out. And then mind you, this is 2021, so this is years later. So I screen recorded, I put it out, and the video does 15 million views overnight. And so I reached out to Stacey Abrams' account directly, and I was like, hey, Miss Abrams, I would like to get connected. I would love to do anything to get you elected. Let me know. And she's like, Brian, I appreciate the virality of that clip. I appreciate the solidarity. Let me connect you with my team. So we were off to the races, and I started creating a lot of political content to combat misinformation that the Brian Kemp campaign was trying to put out. Got her trending multiple times on Twitter, got her, just elevated a lot of her policies and agenda. And yeah, like that's where
That's
the
awesome. Want
politics
to hear
stuff.
a small world? While I was in lockdown, I was doing a film project that got shut down, whatever, and it was about this piece of music that was about a protest, a piece of music that was a protest song. But anyway, that all got shut down. And while I was sitting there in my, the quiet of my home, I developed a concept to do the history of protest music, put together 14 episodes, found a producer, a production company, da da da. Nothing was happening. Finally, like 22, like November 22, Selena Gomez said she was interested, but she would only do it if Stacey Abrams would partner co-produce. So they're co-producing this thing that we've been filming, and hopefully it's going to be on in October before the election, because
Nice.
it's the pilot episode and it's the women of protest music. And
Mm.
because of what had just happened with Roe v. Wade, we thought that was the most important of all the episodes to lead with. So if it does well, there'll be other episodes. But if we finish it on time, they want it on before the election, because this is the election for women, period.
Oh my
I
God.
think I think women once again are gonna save the democracy. I just really do.
Agreed. Agreed. This is gonna be, yes, I agree. And it's gonna be, I'm looking towards 2028 because, I'm not saying that it's a given, it's in the bag. We're still gonna do the work
No,
and
no,
still,
no.
but as I look towards 2028, I'm just thinking about like just the hope. Like, because I don't think that Donald Trump is gonna last that long.
No,
Uh,
I think he's gonna explode before the November election.
that's true. I'm just like, I don't know that he, but we're gonna see. It's gonna be very interesting to see where MAGA goes
Yeah.
after.
I mean, to the toilet, and that's that's just you can't survive a country of 350 million people if at the core it's evil. It doesn't work. Didn't work in Germany, didn't work in Constantinople, didn't last with Napoleon. Boom. It's not even, it's no. It's just the big no. And it's not going to work here because we have capitalism.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
There's less people because what happened in Russia when the people just said, I've had it with these elites. You saw who won on that score, honey. And you saw that happen in France too. We, the people, always rise at the right time.
That's right.
Hopefully, that's why we have voting booths so that you can rise and then just go vote as opposed to like becoming, also violent,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Agreed. Agreed. And but there's the other side, because I like to look at all the sides, and there's the other side that says, if people are not being proactive, because again, like, and this is my argument, I'm not pressuring anybody to do anything. Like I'm at a point where I will give out all of the information. I'm going to make sure that I'm exciting the people who are excited to go out to vote. I'm going to do my part, but I'm not going to twist anybody's arm now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to pull teeth. I'm not going to do like, what's at stake. And, people are like, oh, well, I'm just so upset that, people keep saying it's the most consequential election. Y'all say that every year. I'm like, yeah, because it's true. But at this point, if you know what the facts are, Google is free. The content is there, and you still don't vote, you still don't do what you need to do, and the other side wins, please know that we've been telling you for all this long time. So don't cry later.
No, no, no. The soft sale is a good strategy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? As opposed to MSNBC, which is like, it's like the boogeyman.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm just giving you the information passively. You either listen or you don't. And if you don't listen and you know that it was there and you were choosing to be complicit in willful ignorance, then you can go ahead and do that. But then don't cry later, because I will have zero empathy and sympathy. Um, you know,
And because
and
ultimately, no matter the worst case scenario, your life doesn't have to necessarily end in shambles. If you're smart and you manage to put one foot in front of the other to get to this point, you'll do it again and again and again. I mean, the threat is not of our lives. The threat of is just of our dignity and our humanity. And like, I feel like, our souls have been kind of tarnished because of him. And I'm more about like general gentleness and love, and I'm like an old hippie, you know what I mean? I'm like the last of the hippies, and whatever. But
yeah.
my life won't be catastrophized, if that's a word. But a lot of other all young people's lives, I mean, I've had my life, I've had a full life. I've had my rights. I fought for them. We fought for AIDS medication. We fought for gay rights. We stood alongside women's rights. I mean, that's my life.
Yeah.
And, wow. Like, you want to take away my gay rights? Go, fine. You can have them. You can have them, girl. You know what I mean? I'm dead. Goodbye.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's good to have laughter in so much doom and gloom, right?
Oh,
Because I mean,
definitely.
but it's
I
gonna
just,
come down. It's gonna come down to, do people think that it is worth to save our democracy and to fight for it? And if the answer is yes, then go ahead and do it. If the answer is no, then go ahead and stay home. But
Do what you
again,
gotta do. Good
do
luck.
what you need to do. Good luck.
It's like hold the nose, do it. Just, there's 6 ways you can do the same vote for.
Yes. Yeah. Uh, right.
Anyway, so no, I just the laughter is how I have survived my life. There is no question from childhood on, because since 5, I was already getting like her, being other is really uh hard when you're little, but it ultimately becomes the badge of honor that that you rise to the occasion, because being other makes you have, either you can feel bad about it, or you could feel like, fuck it, this is,
Right.
so it's a matter of how your perception of what's happening to you in the world at that moment is going to affect you forever or not, you
Mhm.
know and that's why the voting this November, okay, I actually think 2020 was more consequential, because that was nothing like we'd ever seen before. What's coming in 24, we've been fucking talking about it. You know what I mean? There's like no surprise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is
Well,
no surprise. It's like, if you don't, it's like you just said, if you see what's happening and you still don't do what's in your best interest, well, you're stupid as fuck. You
right.
make MAGAs seem interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, yeah, it's just really highlighting the truth of the matter and what they are, who they are, what they're fighting for, how it's going to impact people, and then celebrating all the accomplishments that we have, because there's a lot of things that, the Biden Harris administration have done that people are just like, oh, I didn't know. Like, I just had a comment, and it was not even things that we consider wins. But I was having and I put this video. I had a conversation with someone, and they were like, yeah, I think Joe Biden sucks because he sucks at the border. And I was just like, well, what does he suck at the border? He's like, well, he dismantled the wall and he's just bad at immigration. And I was just like, he really didn't dismantle the wall.
The winds dismantled the wall.
I'm just like, I'm like, he didn't dismantle the wall, and he was just like, well, I'm just not so well versed, but and then I'm just like, it continues to reaffirm what I've been saying, that people don't read beyond the headline, people don't do the research beyond what the pundit has said. They listen to the talking points and they run with it. And it took literally a 2-minute conversation of me explaining to him, no, immigration is a very complex issue. Biden has to work with the legislature. The legislature has been, dragging its feet. Republicans tanked their own bill, even though it could have potentially, helped all this stuff. And I was like, Trump called these people and told them not to do it because he wanted to take credit. He was like, oh, I didn't know any of that. Joe Biden has my vote now. And I was like, that's all it took.
Yeah,
It took.
I went to a dinner of well-heeled gays here in Hollywood. It was 10 people, and me and my friend Steven, who uh were just didn't want to talk about politics, but it just happened to come up. And he and I were the only 2 people that were willing to vote for Joe. It was like, and 2 were because of the war, and the rest were like, well, he's old and all this stuff. And I was like, it was the whole one issue voter thing. Like, what's your one issue? Like, just talk about it now. I don't, there's no judgment, but let's just try to have this conversation. And by the end of dinner, those 2 holdouts were still the holdouts, and 8 people realized that they were going to have to vote for Joe.
Yeah.
If you're like, you're still trying, if you're gay, marry, I mean, whatever, but
Yeah.
it's not even just the gay rights thing, because it's almost like, again, even with me, it's like, it's not as important as other freedoms that we all enjoy.
Yeah.
And just having to listen, like, could you imagine listening to him in the news as it is, where the media has already crowned her queen, you know what I mean? So we're stuck having to listen to that anyway. But if he's president, then you're listening to it from the podium, and like that, well, at least we've been spared these few years.
Oh
And
yeah.
RFK's voice, I mean, no, no, no.
Yeah, and yes, so yeah, no, RFK. RFK
Whoa.
has no chance in hell to win this damn election. He just wants to stir the damn pot, and I think that he's just jealous of the fact that majority of his family wants to vote for Joe Biden, has endorsed Joe Biden, was seen at the White House taking the photo, the group family
I
photo
know,
with
right?
Joe Biden, and I was just like, and I love that. I love that anchor who was having the conversation with him and was like, your family doesn't want you to run, doesn't want to support you, and he's just like, well, does your family support everything you do? And she was like, well, they don't support everything that I do, but if I ran for president, they'd vote for me. I was just like, that's it. You better fucking run. But the reality is that he's stirring the pot. And I think he's just jealous of the fact that Biden is getting the support that he's getting. And, he shot himself in the foot. He's anti-vax. He's been caught like he was on Sean Hannity, and Sean Hannity was giving him an opportunity to clear up, like, oh, you don't know Jeffrey Epstein, do you? And he was like, yeah, I flew with him twice, and I was in and Sean Hannity
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah, the guy's a putz. I can't listen to him. But
oh
yeah, so the other thing about him, though, it just was the other day, he's funded by like Heritage Foundation people. Like what? Like just get away. It's like a mosquito in the summertime. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Just like go away, and you can't data, you can't outsmart somebody, you know what I mean? Whatever.
yeah.
Anyway, but anyway, so you're a joy to talk to, and I appreciate that. Well, what's your major? Are you majoring in a specific, you said you're going for your doctorate, right?
Yes, doctorate. It's a doctorate in education.
Such a smarty pants. Anyway. Well, good, because we need smart people. You gonna ever run for anything? Would you even think about it?
Everybody
Yes.
asks, that is a question that people ask me all the time on social media, and I got it yesterday when I was doing my guest lecturing, and I don't know. I have this mentality that I think I'm not electable, and that's because I think I articulate my points in ways that are very that are not palatable to uh all sectors of the population. I think that there are people who listen to what I have to say, and they agree, and they like how I say it, and they like how I'm a fighter, and I'm all this stuff, and they put in the comments. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, take it a day at a time, put your one foot in front of the other. I just want to know if you decide to do that, let me be part of in the same effort that I'm putting to end Jim Jordan, which is my campaign slogan, is called
Yeah.
End Jim Jordan. I kind of like that one. Tammy was like, we're gonna, vote, um, wait, what was her slogan? Her slogan was too Pollyanna. I want to end Jim Jordan. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And we need to bring, and can we
But
real
you're only
quick?
28. You represent what you're saying is you're thinking about it in terms of how the world communicates in in politics now. You're the next voice. You're part of the future. You are how we can move this country forward. I mean, I may not live long enough to see you president, but whatever, but you never know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, just finished your degree. Just do that. Finish that. Don't worry about the politics. There's always going to be somebody who's going to like want to like corrupt you down the road. You know what I mean? To politics.
Yeah, I know. I know, and I just thought about it, but a lot of people say that particularly. They're like how you started the show, like, oh, you're a great communicator and all this stuff, and you can talk to your people. I mean, I just know I don't know if I'd run, and I don't know if I'd made the determination now, but I do know that if I did run, and if I were in that position, that I know that I would be doing it so differently. I would be so transparent with my constituents. Like it would be like, this is where, like, I've actually mentioned this to anyone who would listen, that I think the the Biden Harris administration, should do like a web page that looks like a domino, literally that looks and mirrors a Domino's like pizza tracker for every policy agenda that they've wanted people
Accomplish.
to, accomplish, and say, where is it in the process? Oh, it's held up in the Senate. Oh, it's held up in the House because Republicans are
Right,
like,
right.
give us that tracker. I know that I would be doing that with all of my campaign promises, and I think that that's a way to
That's
get
because you're the next generation of communicator, which is not what the DNC and the Democratic Party is known for.
right.
So put those trackers together. Just get into the habit of it. It's just unbelievable. That's how horrible we are as a communication strategy.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to be
Yeah, no,
better.
you're the future of, politics, even if you end up not going into politics, but as an educator, that's all part of politics, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
turning
Yeah.
those people and you'd probably identify people that you could probably steer that way.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah,
So
we'll
yeah, so you're part of the future. So just keep staying with don't listen to the old guard. They're fucking I mean, how old is everyone in our freaking Congress?
70 and above.
Yikes.
But I mean,
Anyway.
that's another group. But and Gen Z is becoming the largest voting bloc. They're going to outpace the baby boomers and being the largest voting bloc. Either are outpacing or soon will. So
That's in numbers, but the thing is,
yeah,
they don't show up enough. So
yes,
it's
yes, and
so
that's the problem.
yeah, but I also think that for this election, the other part, because I am senior citizen, I want to reach out to the seniors that just are apathetic and don't vote because everything, but now their health care is on the line.
Yeah,
Their social security is on the line.
right.
That's big. That's the equivalent of women's issue for a woman is their social security. The end. Period.
Yeah.
Boom. Done, done, done. One issue voter. If you're over 65, snap out of it. You don't want to vote because what? You got to watch the game. I mean, what? Just off the couch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
So
critical.
it's critical, and it's going to really take all of our voices to reach different segments, because the people who again listen to me may not listen to the next person. The people who listen to you may not listen to me, right? Like it's
100%.
but we're
Although I
getting
do want to give a self plug for myself. I wrote a book that just
yes.
came out, and it's look, I wrote it because I am like at the end of games of my life here. You know what I mean? It was the bucket list. It's huge, but a 19-year-old kid did a 3-minute TikTok review on this book that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I didn't think about anybody when that could even relate to half of my stories. My dramas are deep,
Yeah.
and this kid like totally got it and totally gave the most beautiful review of this book. And and he was got life lessons. So I think you don't know who's going to relate to what your message is
Mm.
ultimately what I'd say. And I think you, in the same way, I, who am a senior citizen, really appreciate the way you speak and your eloquence, and in the kind of hopefulness and that kind of Barack Obama-y kind of, more people like that are not in our currently in our politics, honey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Not to be seen. I don't care. Even the young ones, and I mean, Jared Moskowitz is kind of hilarious. And what's her name from Florida, from Texas, who I adore. Um, what's her name? Jasmine Crockett is my
Yeah.
go-to. Her and Jared should have like a show. You know what I mean? They should go on tour. They
Yeah.
should go on a vote smart tour.
Yeah.
They're hilarious.
And excellent communicators.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
It's genius. It's almost like, yeah, yeah, we don't have that. It's kind of like, well, yeah, it's like stand-up comedian genius with smarts and legal, ease and all this stuff that we don't have.
Yeah.
So yeah, lean into them. That's who you need to one day kind of be at the table, as opposed to the issue that the table is discussing.
Right. Seriously. Seriously, we'll see. But it's definitely something that people have always asked me, and I've thought about it here and there. But we'll see.
All right. Well, I want to be on the campaign. Just FYI. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
It
much.
was a pleasure. Mhm. Ciao.